As my battalion marched onto the craggy surface of the asteroid, I looked around with satisfaction. This floating chunk of rock was the perfect place to set up a mining operation and harvest galaxium ore, the rare mineral we needed to upgrade our fleet's plasma cannons. According to our intel, this asteroid was uninhabited, light years away from the nearest space lane or inhabited system, which made it ripe for the taking by our Ilshara Empire, always hungry for resources to fuel our expansion. My second-in-command, Sklar, walked up to me, his heavy boots kicking up plumes of gray asteroid dust. No life forms detected, Commander Takala. Their intel was good for once. We can start mining ops immediately. I nodded, the smile evident on my face even through my breathing mask. Excellent. Get our mechanized excavators deployed at once. I want... A sudden boom cut me off, echoes ringing across the pockmarked landscape. I whirled, hand dropping to my sidearm. Had someone followed us? But no shapes appeared in the black sky above. Then a different sound, the crunch of metal being wrenched and torn apart. Over the rise, one of our excavators rose into the air, its front half now a mangled mess of steel. It hovered for a moment, then dropped back to the ground with a heavy thud. "Attack!" Sklar yelled, raising his plasma rifle. He strode towards the wreckage, squad of soldiers behind him. I followed quickly, adrenaline coursing through my veins. What could have done this? The asteroid was supposed to be deserted. As we came over the rise, we saw them, a mass of strange creatures pouring out of cave mouths carved into the rocky ground. They walked on two legs and were puny, half the height of my barrel-chested Ilsharan warriors. No natural armor or claws either, just fragile-looking skin. One turned to face us, raising a primitive-looking projectile weapon. I almost laughed. These were barely more than animals. We outnumbered them 3-1, outgunned them even further. Overconfident in our technological and physical superiority, we assumed it would be a quick, brutal rout. "Wipe them out," I ordered, pointing. "Leave none alive." My soldiers let loose with plasma fire and charged, thirsty for blood. The creatures returned fire with surprising discipline, dropping into covered positions behind boulders and wreckage. Several of my warriors were hit. The projectiles punched smoking holes right through their light armor. I ducked behind cover, grunting in surprise. The weapons were crude, but obviously effective. We would need to adapt our tactics. "Deploy the mechanized walkers," I said into my comms. "Their armor can stand up to those projectiles." From our landing ships, 6 walkers stepped out, bipedal mechs 10 meters tall, armed with anti-personnel cannons and missile pods. They stomped forward, shields glimmering over their hulls. Now we would crush these pests for good. But the creatures did not break and run at the sight of our mechanized might. They stood firm, some kind of squat-wheeled vehicles arriving to support them. One fired a straight-flying missile that streaked right through a walker's shields to blow off its leg in a blaze of fire. As it toppled, I slammed my fist into my thigh. This made no sense. These vermin had no right to put up such a devastating defense. But the implication was chilling. This asteroid was not as deserted as our intel suggested. And whoever, or whatever these creatures were, they were dug in and prepared to fiercely defend their territory. The strange bipedal creatures fought with a discipline and cunning that belied their unimpressive appearance. My mechanized walkers pressed forward, stomping over the rocky terrain, confident their heavy armor and shields would protect them. But these aliens continued to surprise us with their tenacity and technology. Small teams emerged from concealed positions, wielding rocket launchers. They fired volleys of missiles that exploded against the walkers' shimmering shields. The impacts made the mechs stagger, though their armor held. My battalion commander, Sklar, barked a laugh over the comms. "These primitives think their fireworks can stop our steel giants? Keep advancing. Crush them underfoot." The walkers plodded onward, firing their autocannons and missile pods to clear out the pockets of resistance. But the aliens refused to break. One team rushed forward, somehow dodging the devastating barrage. They attached strange packages to a walker's legs using magnetic clamps. Before the pilot could react, the packages exploded. The walker's armor groaned and ruptured from the shaped charges. Its left leg blew off at the knee joint, sending the 30-ton mech toppling. The aliens cheered, their cries audible over my helmet comms. I clenched my fists. Enough of this! Deploy my personal guard and wipe these vermin out. From my command shuttle, 20 elite soldiers leapt out, jetpacks flaring. They wore heavy armor that could withstand the aliens' rockets and wielded rapid-firing plasma carbines. I grinned, safe behind the lines, as my faithful guards descended on the enemy position. But the aliens had yet more tricks. Several wheeled vehicles grouped together, projecting shimmering energy fields. My guards' plasma bolts spattered harmlessly off the invisible barriers. Then panels slid open on the vehicles, revealing tubes that fired arcing blue beams. Those energized plasma shots ripped through my guards' armor like tissue paper, leaving smoking, charred holes. In seconds, 18 of my 20 elite troopers were dead. I stood in the shuttle door, mouth agape. These aliens had some kind of death ray technology. It was impossible. Sklar's voice rasped urgently in my earpiece. "Commander, our mechanized walkers are taking heavy damage. These aliens are too well dug in and supplied. We do not have the advantage of numbers we thought." I looked around the rocky battlefield, littered with the burning wreckage of our once mighty machines. The remaining walkers limped on smoking stumps of melted actuators, riddled with holes. My greatest warriors lay dead and dying around shattered boulders. But the aliens had taken losses too. Their mysterious wheeled vehicles were reduced to slag. Dozens of their fragile soldiers lay crumpled, leaking dark blood. Surely if we rallied all our might, we could still crush them. "Pull our forces back to the landing zone to regroup," I ordered Sklar through gritted teeth. The words tasted like ashes in my mouth. In all my campaigns, never had I been forced to retreat on an open battlefield. "We will call for reinforcements from high command. Our invasion fleet will obliterate these pests from orbit." Humiliation burned in my gut as our ships lifted off, fleeing from an enemy we still knew almost nothing about. But two surprising truths were clear. This asteroid was not as uninhabited as our intel suggested, and whoever these bipedal aliens were, they had the technology and the will to fiercely defend their home. Back at our staging base, I strode through the ranks of my demoralized soldiers. The wounded filled our med bays, while mechanics desperately worked to repair our battered mechanized walkers. The successful invasion I had anticipated was now in shambles. Sklar approached, his face grim. "The reserves from our fleet are on their way," he reported, "but it will take them 2 solar cycles to arrive in system." I clenched my jaw. "Then we must hold out here until reinforcements arrive. Establish a defensive perimeter around the base." No sooner had I finished speaking when alarms blared across the camp. I rushed to the command center, my heart's pounding. Had the aliens already counterattacked? But the display screen showed something emerging from hyperspace at the system's edge, a fleet of unknown design. My brow furrowed. Were these allies of the aliens we fought on the planet? "Commander, we are being contacted over an open channel," my comms officer yelled over the alarms. "Put it through," I replied. The main view screen flickered, displaying the face of one of the pale bipedal creatures. It was the first time I had seen one up close. Flat white skin, no nose or tusks, tiny mouth, patches of hair atop its head. Strange, but I sensed intelligence behind its small, dark eyes. "I am Captain Smith of the United Earth Federation," it said, its translator converting the alien tongue into my language. "This system and everything in it belong to humanity. Withdraw your invasion fleet immediately or be destroyed." I stood stunned for a moment. This was their commander contacting us directly? I had blithely assumed these life forms were primitive, but they had a star fleet and knew how to negotiate. Sklar responded before I could stop him. "You are in no position to make threats, alien," he blustered. "Our reinforcements will be here swiftly. If you leave now, we will be merciful and spare your world." I winced. Fool. We knew nothing about their full capabilities, but it was too late. The alien captain's eyes narrowed. "You were warned. Now face the consequences." The connection terminated. Moments later, alarms blared anew as their fleet accelerated toward our position. Scores of sleek vessels bristling with gun ports and launch bays along their flanks. And the size. Their capital ships were easily 12 kilometers long. Frantically, I ordered our depleted fleet into defensive formations. Our largest destroyer was barely 2 kilometers. We began charging weapons, expecting a frontal assault. But the enemy did not approach within plasma cannon range. Instead, thousands of small contacts appeared on our scopes, some sort of remote drones or AI-guided bombs. They swarmed our ships by the hundreds, impacting with nuclear fury. Our shields flared brilliantly from the endless bombardment. 2 frigates took too many hits, their reactors overloading and consuming them in white-hot plumes of vapor. "Commander!" Sklar yelled. "At this rate, our shields will fail within minutes." I watched the battle display in despair. Our vaunted fleet was being decimated by an enemy who did not even need to approach us directly. These aliens, these humans, had a military might that we sorely underestimated. "Signal all ships to withdraw from the combat zone," I said bitterly. "We have lost this battle." The ragged remnants of my invasion fleet limped back to our staging base on the asteroid's surface. Barely a third of our ships had survived the humans' onslaught. The massive drones had overwhelmed our defenses through sheer numbers, like angry insect swarms. Never had we encountered such technology. In the command center, my second Sklar slammed his fist down in frustration. How can we defeat an enemy who refuses to engage us ship to ship? I shook my head grimly. In a straight-up space battle, our plasma cannons and torpedoes excelled at destroying large targets. But the humans had turned warfare into an algorithmic science, unleashing uncaring machines to do their killing. "There must be a weakness we can exploit," I insisted. "Increase scanning resolution and get me detailed intel on their capabilities." For 2 solar cycles, we analyzed and planned, searching for gaps in humanity's military juggernaut. Our reserves trickled in, but I knew it was not enough. Their technological superiority was just too great. Finally, Sklar approached, his expression worried. "Commander, our deep scans of the asteroid reveal rich deposits of galaxium ore extending for hundreds of microns in all directions." My hopes rose at first. That much galaxium could supply our empire for decaphoebs. Is there a way to mine it without the humans noticing? But Sklar shook his head. "We also intercepted their transmissions. This asteroid is merely one small outpost in their territory. They have massive shipyards and armies spread throughout many systems." I sank into my chair, claws digging furrows in the armrests. We had stumbled into something much greater than a simple raiding operation. These humans had an interstellar federation, vast resources, and technology beyond anything we had faced before. Suddenly, our comms crackled with a burst signal, the human captain contacting us again. "This is Captain Smith of the United Earth Federation to Ilsharan Invasion Force. You fought well, but this system is ours." Rage boiled within me. Were they contacting us just to mock us in defeat? But the human continued, "Withdraw all your ships beyond the system's Oort cloud. If you do so peacefully, no further harm will come to you." I sat in silence as the message ended, seething with anger and bitterness. After decaphoebs of successful conquests, My greatest battle had ended in humiliation against an impossibly powerful foe, but the reality was clear. We could not defeat these humans with the forces currently at our disposal. Swallowing my pride, I opened a channel. "Captain Smith, this is Commander Takala. Your offer of passage is accepted. We appreciate your mercy and shall withdraw all vessels immediately." The words curdled in my gullet, but what choice did I have? As we retreated through the system's edge, I vowed to return one day with a fleet to humble these humans. I had underestimated them once. It was a mistake I would not repeat next time our kinds crossed paths among the stars. The mood was grim as our battered fleet limped away from the human system. Less than half our invading force had survived the devastating battles. While my engineers frantically worked to stabilize our damaged reactor cores, I sat in my quarters brooding over the string of defeats. We had encountered a technologically superior foe in the humans. That much was clear. But it galled me that we knew so little about them. Where was their empire located? How many worlds did they control? What motivated them to expand into the depths of space? Their biological makeup seemed so frail. How did they come to dominate their region of the galaxy so completely? I was shaken from my contemplation when Sklar requested entry. My second-in-command had a noticeable slump to his shoulders. "Commander, we are clear of the system's Oort cloud, as the human captain instructed. What are your orders?" What orders indeed? It was obvious we could not hold this region of space. "Set a course back to Ilshara," I said after a moment's consideration. "We must make a full report to the Imperial Command Council." Sklar's eyes widened in surprise. "Will they not see us as failures for retreating?" "Perhaps," I conceded. "But if we attack the humans again, our entire fleet could be destroyed next time. Billions of Ilsharan lives lost, and nothing gained." No, the Empire had to know what we faced here. Both the humanity's overwhelming military power and their apparent willingness to be merciful if shown respect. But would the Council listen and change course? Or would wounded pride drive them to launch an even greater armada into ruin? The burden of what I had to report weighed heavily on me. As our ships put distance between us and Earth territory, I gave the order to open communications. There was one last gesture I wanted to make for both tactical and ethical reasons. The human captain appeared on my screen again, looking curious. "Commander Takala, to what do I owe the pleasure?" There was no mockery or malice in his tone. I cleared my throat awkwardly. "Captain Smith, you prevailed over us in combat but treated us honorably. I wanted to say, your people have my genuine respect, and to offer safe passage if any human vessels require it through Ilsharan space." Smith looked surprised, then gave a slow nod. "Your offer is appreciated. Our kinds have much to learn from each other." The channel closed, and I sat back, feeling an odd peace. In my long career, I had never reached out to an enemy in this way. But as we traveled home, I knew from painful experience that peace was the only path forward with the humans. If we sought only war, we would find only ruin among the stars.